I'm going to hit the record button. So today will be recorded. And once again, good afternoon, everyone. This is Catherine with Eduphoria, and I am joined by my colleague, Jenny, and I'm Catherine. And we also have a guest presenter with us today, Beth Harper from Volusia County Schools in Florida. So we're really happy to have her. And we're going to stay on the cameras just for a little bit. We're trying something new today. I want to make sure that everybody is seeing our lovely faces, and also I am sharing our main screen of Eddie with an orange background. So if just a few people could add some notes in the chat saying, yes, we see you, or in the question, actually, where you can type in questions. Yes, you can see us. Awesome. All three there. Thank you. Okay. We're going to be covering some great topics today, and they include the following. Oops, before we do that, I'm so glad that I'm on camera saying this. Everybody here on the webinar today is in listen-only mode, and if you have a question, please type in the question section of the GoToWebinar panel. We are very excited to have some polls, so we ask you to participate in those, as well as tweeting. If you have a Twitter account, please tweet what you're learning today with hashtag WednesdayWeb, short for Wednesday Web, and at Eduphoria. When Beth speaks, we will have her Twitter account up for you to see, so you can ping her and let the world know what a great job she's doing. We do have a request for everybody who received the email, hopefully today, that went out from Eduphoria asking for your support in helping us to make something happen with the College Board and our request for the AP curriculum frameworks. In the email, you had a button to click to fill out a form, and I'm going to show you where this also exists online. If you go to our online help in the announcements section, you will see College Board AP Curriculum Frameworks request, and we are collecting information from our school districts across the country that would benefit from having the AP Curriculum Frameworks added to our database. And you'll see there is a big button that says Submit Form here from our online help. Once again, it's under Eduphoria Announcements and then Information and Updates. You can also check your email that went out today from Eduphoria, and there was a link in that also. Just so you know where we are, I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, and Beth is in Daytona Beach, Florida, and Jenny is not really where that red dot is. I had to guesstimate. So she's in Salado, Texas, which is north of Austin. So give you a little frame of reference where we're all located. Our agenda today is that we are going to focus on the editing of data views for campus level people. Now, we realize there are a lot of people who are participating today who might be from a district, and that's okay. We just want you to know that this webinar is targeting those on specific campuses. We do have, I'm going to go over our campus level roles and rights and some vocabulary we'll be using today, and then I'm going to ask you to participate in a poll. Then I'm going to pass over the presentation to our guest presenter, Beth Harper. After Beth presents, Jenny's going to go through some additional information, going through the steps that Beth covered when she was building a view. And we're going to wrap up with a poll and questions. If there is a question you have at any time, please don't hesitate to type that into the questions field in your GoToWebinar field that you'll see down there for questions. Okay, so at this time, we are all going to be very happy to stop sharing our cameras, and we're going to go straight into presentation mode. So ladies, if we can turn off our cameras, make sure your little green light is off. And okay, great. And I just want to confirm that everybody still sees my agenda, Jenny and Beth. Do you still see the agenda?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the targeted audience for today. Those are people who have the principal role on a campus. You don't necessarily have to be the principal on a campus, but in system management, under Aware, you need to be the principal in order to be able to analyze tests for your campus. And you have that Analyze tab on your campus when you go in and look at all local and state assessments, possibly for your campus. Now, teachers will see the Analyze Test tab, but this is for those of you who aren't rostered and don't have students in your courses. When Jenny and Beth share how you are going to build views, it's important to know that this is a very flexible process. And we at Eduphoria are not really big on canned reports. We want to give you the tools and the ability to build all of the views that you need for your district and for your campus. So that's why we want you to have that flexibility to drag in metadata fields and possibly add filters to those. But today's focus will be for those on campuses who have the principal role assigned, okay? And that is set up in the backend system management by your system administrator who has that role in Aware. Excuse me, that role in Eduphoria. Okay, we have some vocabulary to cover. We are going to be addressing Florida school districts and Texas school districts today, so that we're all on the same page. Jenny may reference SEs or student expectations. That those are the student learning standards that Florida would talk about. So those are equivalents. In Florida, it's a student learning standard, and in Texas, it's an SE or a student expectation. The same is true of state tests. We have state tests, they're just named different things. In Texas, that's STAR, for those of you in Florida and don't know. And for those of you in Texas, the state test is called the FSA. So that's where this verbiage will be used today during the webinar. Key into the parts that are important to you, but wanted to throw that out there before we move any further. Okay, I do have a poll for everybody, so get your fingers ready to press a button. I would like to know, I'm about to activate that poll. And is everybody seeing the poll? Jenny and Beth, can you tell me if you're seeing the poll?
Not yet. Just
okay.
This poll.
Okay. Oh, it says it's closed. Okay, you know why? Because I was practicing earlier and I did it, and so now I can't do it anymore. So the poll was, have you ever clicked the edit button? And yes, raise your hand. Why don't you do that? I see some hands going up. So if we just have you raise your hands and tell us if you've ever clicked the, okay, I see a few hands. Awesome. Thank you, those of you who are raising your hands and said that you have clicked the edit button. And if you've never clicked the edit button, you should feel comfortable doing that today. And if you don't have the edit button, you need to contact somebody in your school district to find out if you can receive that role or right in Eduphoria. Okay, so there was our wonderful poll, which was good in theory, but you raised your hands and we worked with it. Now we're going to pass to Beth Harper. She is a data analyst in Volusia County Schools, Florida. If you'd like to tweet about what you're learning from Beth during her session and her part of this presentation, please do so. And I am going to now make you the presenter, Beth. So you now have the ability to share your screen with us.
Okay.
And we are seeing it. Wonderful.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Beth Harper. I'm an assessment and data analyst with Volusia County Schools in Florida. In my role, I support schools by working with administration, academic coaches, teachers, to analyze state, district, and school-based assessments. I work closely with PLCs to use the data to drive instruction, and one aspect of analyzing the data is using the most informative reports available. And sometimes we export to Excel, but that takes cutting, pasting, moving columns, manipulating, and there's so much that we can do within Eduphoria that would save the time that we could use to support teachers. So what I'm going to do today is show you one of my favorite views to share with coaches. It's we often give assessments that assess the same standards over 1 to 2, even possibly 4 assessments. And we like to see and monitor the growth between those assessments. And there's a view in Eduphoria that you can create to do that without ever leaving the platform. So I'm going to demonstrate this as if I'm sitting with a coach, an academic coach is what we call it in Volusia County. It's like an instructional coach. I'm not sure what they call it in Texas. But. So I'm just going to go to, and I'm just for reference, I'm in demo mode. So I'm going to go to a district assessment, and we're using an assessment from 1516. But everything I'm doing here today can be done with any assessment within Eduphoria. I'm going to go to 4th grade, and we're going to go to FMT2. And the FMT, just to give you a reference, in Volusia County, we give the SMT, which is the Standards Monitoring Test, in August, and then we give it again at the end of the first semester. So between those two administrations, though, we give Volusia Math Test, which is the VMT. This is F for Florida Math Test. But some of the same standards are assessed on both of these and the SMT 1 and 2. So for today's purpose, if I'm sitting with a coach and we're analyzing FMT 2, by default, it always comes up to this screen. And every time I change this drop down, it's going to default back to the screen. So I always make sure that my drop down is set where I want it before I switch from the different icons. So I'm going to minimize this just so we can see more of the screen. I'm going to go to what I feel is one of the most informative reports, is the Student Learning Standard Breakdown report. Let's wait for that to load. So on this report, we have all of the elementary schools, and then we have the standards, and these are Florida standards, and we have the raw score, the percent score, and depending on if you use the performance levels, they're there. In Volusia County, we use a column that's satisfactory, which means they scored 70% or higher, or advanced, which means they scored 100% on the assessment. The nice thing about the standard view and staying in Eduphoria when you're analyzing from this is that if you hover over the standard, it shows you what the standard number is. So if you were to export this to Excel, you're going to have to use some sort of a reference, your curriculum map, your guides, to make sure you're talking about the right standard. But in Eduphoria, if you hover over it, it says it right there, which is nice. Okay. Again, our focus today is editing. So before I edit, I always have the coaches go to the teacher summary view. And I'll explain. Let's let that load. Okay, so now I've gone to the teacher summary, and I'm an elementary school principal for the purpose of this demo site. So these are the 4th grade teachers that administered the FMT2. And I'm going to edit this view. So I click the edit, and this is where you can make all of your changes. And the tables tab lets me choose which assessments I want to look at. Now, because I told you that I'm looking to see progress across different assessments, I'm going to add in 2 additional assessments. I'm going to bring in the FMT 1 and the SMT 1. And had we administered the SMT 2 at this point, I would bring in that as well. Now, because when I analyze it, I like to look at it in the order that it was administered, and we give the SMT 1 first. So I'm going to drop these down, and the order that they're in the presentation here is how they were, how they'll appear in the report. So we gave SMT 1 first, and then FMT 1 towards the end of October, and FMT 2 beginning of December, mid-December. Okay, so these are the assessments I'm looking at. Now I can switch to the columns, And this is exactly the columns that I'll see. And obviously, because I'm looking for the learning standards, I'm going to leave that. For the purpose of this report, I'm going to get rid of raw score. And when I drag it over, I can just drag it and drop it. It's going to automatically put it in the right folder, so I don't have to worry about that. And again, I'm not going to use the performance levels for this report because the focus is monitoring the standards. Okay. So now I have the columns that I want to see. And then the last tab is the Summarize tab. And you can drag anything from over here over to the Summarize. It defaults to these 5 subgroups. Now, we always analyze by subgroups, so these are very important, but for the purpose of today, I'm going to move them out because, again, we're just looking at the standards and I'm showing you how to edit. So I can drag them one at a time, like I did with the columns, or I can just hit the clear button at the bottom, and it's just going to get rid of them all at one time. Okay. So now I have the report basically the way I want it. So I'm going to update in the corner, and Jenny's going to go over some of the procedures again with all of this. Okay, so now I have, you can see it's the same list of teachers without the demographics, and it has all 3 of my tests in a horizontal view. So I'm scrolling over and it has the FMT2, FMT1, and it started with the SMT1. And again, for the purpose of progress monitoring, this isn't the most ideal view. But in Eduphoria, you can click the Compare Across Test tab. Wait for it to load. And now it's turned the assessments into the columns, and you can see at a glance the progress by standard. And again, if you hover over the standard, it shows it. So if I were working with a coach and she was working, or he was working with the 4th grade teachers, they could go by standard now and look to see the growth. And again, if we had the 4th with the SMT2 over, you might be able to look across 3 tests for these standards. So, I mean, we see growth from MBT 1.1 to SMT1 to FMT2. Again, for MBT 1.2, we see the growth. This might be a standard that we want to talk about, though, because we're not seeing growth, a slight decrease. So this is where, again, we would talk about what we're seeing in the classroom assessment, student work, go back, make sure we're monitoring that piece, and go through all of the standards in that same format. Again, this is by teacher. So this is her classroom averages. If I wanted to see this same thing for the district, I could go back to click on the district icon, and you're going to see the same thing across the 3 assessments. I could go to, now I'm just seeing the elementary schools across all of the 4th grade teachers' averages. So you can switch between your icons in this view as well. Okay? I'm going to go back to the teacher view. And I'm going to go back to that original. And this is the time saver. I always say, again, to edit from the teacher view, because at this point I can double click on Miss Bing's name, and it's going to give me her students. So it has the horizontal view, same as before. I can click across test. So for every one of her students, it automatically gives me the comparison by standard in that same view. You can print this. In this particular view, it's a little lengthy if you print it, but I can send it to Miss Bing. And it's set up. Andrea, we'll search for her, and this is going to be sent to Miss Bing. And when it comes to her, she can see it in her list at the bottom where it says My Saved User. it would pop up and say my received views. So she would be able to analyze it within Eduphoria and again be able to hover over the standards and see all the standards while she's analyzing it. I'm going to cancel this. I'm not going to send it. Okay. So to go back to that teacher list, rather than going through that whole process again, I can click the green arrow and it takes me back to the teachers. So now I can go through my teachers and do the same thing, which is a huge time saver if you don't have to change the drop down and edit the columns and the demographics for every teacher. Okay. Because I like this comparison across, I'm going to save this view. It's been saved. Okay. So now under my saved views, it's there, the student learning standard breakdown. Okay, now another huge time saver. In Volusia County, we often give our district assessments within a couple of week time period within the grade level. So when I'm preparing for a PLC for 4th grade, I may also be preparing for 3rd grade. So I want to do these same reports for my 3rd grade teachers. So I can edit again. Okay, I can change this name to 3rd grade. And I'm going to drop in 3rd grade SMT1 and FMT1, and I'm going to get rid of the 4th grade assessments. And I did the same thing just by clicking the edit button and going to tables. And I'm going to update. And I have that exact same edited view with the 3 assessments, well 2 for this case, the 2 assessments with the 3rd grade teachers. So now I've created for an entire grade level the same report with minimal time. So that's why I like to do it that way. And then I can again click on it, send the reports to the teachers, or I can print depending on the purpose or how I do my PLCs.
Beth, we have a few questions for you. Okay. So the question has come up, what did you click to view the standards all in the same column? So could you show the compare across tests option?
Yes, it's the 2 squares here with the orange. If I compare across test, this is this teacher's, all of her students or his students, depending on if Dale's a female or male, and it has both tests side by side. Was that the question? I can't.
That was the answer. So yes, that was great.
Perfect.
And then we had a few people. Will you just highlight that send button again, because it seems to be one that's very popular?
I agree. It's very handy, especially when you're printing. And
I'm going to go over that again too before we finish, because it is something I think. You know,
and it's nice because it keeps it within Eduphoria, so you know, the least amount of places we have to click and go, the more effective it is.
And when we say send, it's sending them an email that they need to go into Eduphoria to look at that sent view. It's not sending student data, so don't be afraid of that. It's just sending them a notification. And
again, it pops up right under where it says save views. It would just say they're received views. And so they could click on that and they would have this view there. And it's tied, in Volusia County, it's tied to our Active Directory. So however we would search for a teacher in our email is the same way we would teach or search for them in this send feature. So I could just type and search and the list of names will pop up and I choose the one I want.
So a good benefit to authenticating with Active Directory. Thank you for that little plug, Beth. How do you typically name these views for your teachers before you send them, or how specific do you get? That was the last question that I saw come up, Beth.
It depends on the purpose of it. If I would probably name it, and I would be consistent throughout the year, so the teachers would know whenever I'm sending the report that has the learning standard breakdown, it has comparison, it's going to have more than one test. I can do the same view without using 2 tests if I just wanted to compare or just look at the standards for 1 test. So I may just leave it at student learning breakdown. depends on how specific you want to be, but I think the key would be consistency, so they're going to know when they see that name that it's going to be for the last VLT or the VMT. You can add in your assessment name. That's the nice thing. You can make it your own. So
Perfect.
it just depends.
Are there any final?
And then if they were done with that view, they can always click on it. Like I can click on this one and just delete it. And I'm not going to in case I'm not done with this, but actually I will. If they're done with that view, they can just click on the delete button and it will leave their received views.
So
and I can go back to my.
Will they break anything if they hit the edit button on the Analyze tab in Aware, Beth?
Absolutely not. No, you will not break a thing. And you make it completely the way you need it to be for the most effective report without trying to manipulate it outside of Aware. So.
Thank you, Beth. You've been fantastic. Claps.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me part of Wednesday's webinar. And in case there are any other questions, I'm going to stay right here.
Awesome. Okay, Jenny, I'm now going to make you the presenter, and give me just a second to hand it over to you.
Okay.
And you now have control.
All right, good. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes. Additional views.
Yes. Okay, so Beth did an example of learning standards across multiple tests. I'm going to do one very similar to that, just because that's everything on this list is something that we get requests for help building fairly often. And so I want to kind of go over those again, and I'm going to use a STAR test and show you how you can do that with multiple tests. And there's one little addition that I wanted to add to that. If you don't like to hover over and see the learning standards, you can actually do it where you can have the learning standard printed in the report. And so again, you're just going to select your assessment. You know what, I might just use like a common assessment for this one. Okay, so I'll just do here, and she showed you how to add additional tests. I'll just show you how to make those learning standards show up in words on your report, which is nice because you run into the meeting and sometimes not everybody knows what those numbers equate to in learning standard terms. So again, I've just selected my test. I'm going to go into this edit button. And again, the tables tab is where if I wanted to compare across multiple tests, all I would do is grab that test and drag it over. But for this example, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you where to go to add that learning standard name in. So here, I'm not, for this report, although all of this stuff is nice to know, in my opinion, the simpler the report, the better. And so sometimes you want all of this, and sometimes this just becomes clutter and it distracts from what you're really trying to show. And so in this case, I'm just going to clear it because I don't need it for now. And right here under Learning Standards, and what was originally in there was all learning standards, and that's going to use the learning standard number you're familiar with seeing across the top or in the Compare Cross Test view down the side. But for this purpose, I'm going to say learning standard number. Now, this number is a little different. Some of you know this already, and we get questions about this a lot. This is actually what the learning standard looks like in the education code, and I'll give you I'll show you here in a second what that is. So I'm going to pull learning standard number and learning standard description over. Something else I want to add here is learning standard number total. So what that is that's going to tell me how many questions on that learning standard were on the test. That's really important because if you get a scary number in there and then you realize only one question was assessed, sometimes that's less scary because it just means that question was particularly difficult, or kids struggle with that question. That's easier to tackle than if there were 10 questions on the assessment and you got a scary number in there. And the flip side to it is it's just a big informative piece. You'd like to assess 3 to 5 questions on each SE for every assessment, but sometimes with spiral items and things that's not always possible. And so the next one I'm going to pull over is learning standard percent correct. So again, we're going to have the learning standard number and description, the learning standard number total, which is the number of questions assessed on that learning standard, and then the percent correct for that. Right here, I'm going to, for the purpose of this report, there's a time and a place for all of this information, but for right now, just to simplify and kind of clean up the report, I'm going to clear all that out. And then I'm going to go down here to update. Whoops, of course not. Okay, let me do that. We're going to get a lot of practice here. I'll just do it for a STAR test. I guess there were no. So that would be what would happen if you did not have learning standards assigned to your assessment. That's a perfect example. Let's go. Let's do 7th grade math.
And that's a great teachable moment, Jenny.
It was. There you go. And
Purpose.
I really thought that was the test I had selected when I ran the trials on this report the other day, but apparently it wasn't. Okay. So again, we're going to clear this. We're going to go to learning standards. And this also is just how easy it is to do this. It just takes a second. Percent correct. Summarize. We're going to clear all that out and hit update. Okay, so what we have here is a report that, again, this is that learning standard number that is, you know, part of the education code in Texas. It would be different in Florida. And I'm not sure how that appears in Florida. But the bigger part here is that you get this description by doing it this way. So this actually tells me what that learning standard is on the assessment, and that's nice. And the other part here is that how many questions were assessed over that learning standard. And then here's your percent correct. And so that's just a really useful report, and you can toggle through. That was for a whole campus. You can look at it by teacher, and you can actually click on the Students tab and break this down by students. And so you can look for every student, what percentage. So again, here's the teacher's name, and I can click on him, and it would bring up his students. And I can also just toggle to the Students tab and look at all students. So it's pretty handy to have access to this. This would be a report with all students and how they did. So again, this 0% looks really scary until you realize it was just one question. They've got a really good grade. They just missed that question. So here's some down here. You notice those. Those would be, you know, they got 1 out of the 3 correct. So you'd want to address that. They missed the bulk of them. So you know, you have to really kind of pay attention to this number, how many questions were assessed. So one thing I want to do, if you go back to the slide, performance for non-passers. So with this very same report, I can go to Edit, and I'm going to add a filter. So right here in my columns, I want to add scores. I'm going to, under the scores tab, so when you get in here and play, you could build pretty much any report you wanted to build right here with all of the things in these, and you just kind of have to get in these folders and look and see what's available. Sometimes you build a report and it pulls up blank and there's like 2 columns that don't play well, and so it won't pull you know, data in, and sometimes it's you know, the assessment, like on the first one, there weren't SEs assigned to that assessment, so you just kind of have to play with it. But again, you're not going to break anything by doing this. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull satisfactory over for our data view. And on satisfactory, I'm going to add a filter to that. So I only want to see students who were not successful on the test, they did not meet satisfactory performance, and I want to see how their SE breakdown, what their SE breakdown looks like. So I pulled satisfactory over. I'm going to highlight it, and click Add a Filter. Now right here, I have some options, equal or doesn't equal. In this case, I'm just going to say equals a yes or no. I'm going to say no. And so depending on what filter you're adding, let's say it was on the percent correct, I'll click on it and show you. You've got different options, so it's going to kind of guide you to add the correct filter. So learning standard percent correct, or if you wanted to look at scores, you could say, you know, greater than 55 and below 70. So you could pull up a range of students, but just for this one's a simple one. I'm going to keep it simple. And if I want to delete the filter, I just delete it. Just click the red X and it deletes. So right now, this is only going to report kids who were not successful. Okay. So again, it just filtered for those students who did not pass, and I can look at the SE breakdown for those students in particular by adding that filter. So that's a pretty simple way to address that. Are there any questions at this point? I don't have
Yes.
my...
Yes.
Okay.
Jenny, we had the question, how did you highlight that again?
Okay, so in the Edit tab, so under columns, all I did was click on it. So if you click on it, it highlights it.
Rhonda, that answered your question?
Are we good on that one?
I think so.
Okay. Okay, and then I'll just cancel here. Let's see, let me look back at my, okay. So something else we can do fairly simply is the summarizing longitudinally or students by in a cohort. So for this case, I'm going to go to 8th grade math. And again, these reports can be run, the reports I've shown you up to now can be run for any assessment. These reports are going to work on your like STAR assessments where the system knows what the equal assessment to that assessment was, or it's going to pull in assessments but not necessarily assessments that are, you have to be careful which ones you use these for. The other reports where you drag and drop the tests you want, I would recommend doing that when you're looking at local assessments because you know which tests should be compared. Where this data view works best on your state assessments. So I'm going to select that summarize selected test, and if you look down here, I have some options. This makes this really easy for me to do. So I pulled in this demo site, the last STAR assessment in here is 2015, so that's the most recent one we have in here. So I would want to use looking back because it's going to pull in results from 15, 14, 13. You know what, math probably wasn't the right one because there's a weird year in there. Let me just change it to reading. With the reporting, there was, in Texas we had when they changed for Florida people, just a point of reference, when they changed the learning standards, they did not report like down to the SE level and things for our assessments. So let's go to reading. We'll do the March.
Are you talking about STAR test, Jenny?
Yeah, on that one.
Well, lucky you in Florida, we don't even get, or they don't even get results down to the student expectation. Everything is based on reporting categories. So lucky Texas that you get that.
We do. I know, it's nice. It is nice. The problem is we don't always get them before we have to retest. So how do you, address that? That's where Eduphoria comes into play, and you can look at all your local assessment data to kind of figure out where their weak spots might be. Okay, so again, I have the last assessment in there, and what these mean as a cohort means you're going to look at that group of students. So you would look at their 8th grade assessment, their 7th grade assessment, their 6th grade assessment. It'll do 4 years, and then 8th, 7th, 6th, and 5th. And then that would be cohort looking back. If I had selected an older test, it would do it looking forward. And so in this one, so for longitudinal analysis, it's going to compare the assessment over multiple years. So not the group of students, but the assessment over multiple years. So cohort applies to students, and the longitudinal analysis applies to the test. And because I've selected the most recent assessment here, I'm going to use longitudinal analysis looking back. And just click update.
And Jenny, I'm assuming for the state of Florida, I'm just asking a question, that, for instance, all of your tests looking back are all STAR tests, and in Florida, there's been a shift from FCAT to FSA. So if you don't have enough years of data, that would be a reason why, because the tests changed.
Right.
Right? I'm just asking.
Yeah, you would probably just want to drag and drop, or it would look back for as many years, I guess, as you have of that assessment. I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
So this is taking a second to pull. Okay, so what I get here looks like a ton of numbers, and so I could go in and kind of clean that up if I wanted to, but it looks like Adams Middle School didn't assess. But you can see this is a demo site, so not all of our data in here is perfect. But you can see my assessment then is analyzed for multiple years. If I clicked on the teacher icon, it would tell me, it would compare, teachers who were there. And again, you're going to have some, changing of staff in there, so you'll see gaps, but you, like this teacher, you could compare, 14 to 13, that kind of thing. And you could view it across tests here as well. So that's a pretty neat way to do that. Very simple to do. Sometimes this is a little easier to look at, and I can clean this up very easily by going to the Summarize tab and just hitting clear. And you could take some of these out. Depending on how you prefer and your teachers prefer to look at the data, you may just want to see percent score or, scale score or raw score, but not all three, because it's certainly not the only data piece you're going to look at, but it's sort of a quick reference for how they did over multiple years. And you could, of course, break it down to the SE level over multiple years. You can kind of go crazy with this, but it's a nice, easy way to run that report. Okay, let's see, triple click. That's something I wanted to show. Are there any questions over that?
Yes, actually a comment. Someone said, okay, wow, this is game-changing. I have never had anyone show me those choices under the Summarize selected test, all caps, thank you, exclamation point. So,
oh, good.
Yay
okay, well,
to that.
One person today. That's good. That made it worth doing the webinar.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so triple click is kind of an aha moment sometimes as well. So what triple click does, and if you already know what it is, you already know how amazing it is. So if I go to third grade math, I have English and Spanish, but I want to evaluate those kids all together. If I just triple click on that, it's going to pull both assessments in. So you no longer have to look at English and then look at Spanish, or you don't have to. You can pull them all into one by triple clicking. So again, let me find one. Let me find an SSI. So when I'm referring to SSI, okay, so here this fifth grade reading, because we had multiple assessments here. So kids who were not successful in March would have taken it in May, and then possibly again in June. It will pull their most, if I triple click here, it's going to pull in their most recent score. I'm looking that in there we go. So it's going to pull in the most recent score. And you notice over here, my date taken, it tells me which assessment it's pulling a score in for. Like if I go over to the student, I'll be able to see that. So,
Jenny, just to clarify, that's for a state level assessment.
A state level assessment,
where you have multiple administrations. Okay.
Yes, and it's not going to pull their highest score. It's going to pull their most recent score. And unfortunately, sometimes kids do better in March than they do in May or June, but you know, if that happens, it's going to pull their most recent score, and so that's the data you're going to be working with, is their most recent attempt at the assessment. So, and then you'll have kids, I mean, you'll just have kids sometimes who are absent, you know, on the initial assessment day, and so then they took it, you know, at a later date, that kind of thing. But this is the way to get all of your students in one report, which is nice. So you could also do, like, if you wanted to look at all of third grade, math and reading, English and Spanish, it'll pull it all in, math, reading, which is really a neat thing. It's just triple clicking, and it doesn't have to be, like, I kind of struggle sometimes with the triple click. In all honesty, it's a little hard to triple click because we double click, but we don't triple click, but you just click 3 times. It's not, once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to do. So, all right, any questions about the triple click? We good? Okay.
Wait, I was muted. Sorry, I muted myself.
That's okay.
But I have a comment. So,
Okay.
someone tried doing the triple click across district assessments, and she said it's summarized across the grade level, multiple subjects too. Thank you. I don't know what that looks like, but good for you that the triple click worked.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I guess it would, anything in that, like, folder is what it's going to pull in. So I guess it would work for a district assessment. I've never used it that way, but I'm sure it could. And like in here, I don't have, because this is a demo site, I don't have, let me see, a subject. You see what I'm saying? A folder that has more than one. Okay, here's one. Let me see. No. I guess we could summarize all of 15, 16's 4th and 9th grade assessments together. I mean, you could. I don't know why you'd want to, but I guess you could. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess triple click will work on any of them. Okay, so quickly, TELPAS I wanted to go over, but I think we're kind of running short on time, and so I'm going to skip that one because it is Texas specific. I just wanted to show you. Let me just quickly go in here and I'll show you where you can pull those. I won't build the report because it takes some time, but I wanted to show you where you can go in and look at their.
Can you explain what TELPAS stands for?
TELPAS is an assessment we give to English language learners in Texas, and their districts do that to kind of assess where those students are, because eventually they are sort of graduated or exited out of the ESL program, and so we give those assessments to kind of, it's one of the tools we use to determine where they are. And so right here, so just in the columns tab, you can go here and you can pull over listening, the rating proficiency, writing, so all 4 of your domains right there, and just click update, and it'll build a report that by student it will give them, you know, advanced, high, or, you know, whatever rating they fall in under there. So that's just in that TELPAS folder here, guys, under the columns tab, and over here I would just pull that out again because you don't want to see it. So you click on your assessment, the columns tab, and then you can build that report. It'll have the student name, student ID, and then their rating under each of the 4 proficiency areas. So, okay, that was a quick run through on that. If y'all have further questions about that, feel free to email us. Oops, I just went way to the end and then back to the beginning. Okay, so right here, this is kind of an overview of what we did. We did click edit, make selections. You're going to edit your tables, columns, and summarize, update and view. And the next little part is print, save, send, or share your view. So quickly. Okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to just edit this view in some way. Maybe I'm just going to take out, oops, raw score. No, take out scale score and raw score. Okay, So I'm just building just a general view. All I'm looking at was a percent score and who, average percent score, and then who passed and who was advanced. And I want to make this, there's a couple of things I can do here. I can just save this so that it's my view, and I just do that by clicking this button, save as a new view. My view has been saved. And then right here under my save views, it's right here. So before I sent this to anybody, I would definitely want to edit the title so that it made sense. Basic. Okay, basic analysis. And then notice once I clicked save, I'm just going to save that so it changes the title of it. And once I clicked save, this share icon appeared. I had the send before, so I could have sent the view like Beth showed you before I clicked save. But once I've saved it, I have this share icon. So what share does when I click on it, and it's a little different if I'm logged in like as a district user, so I have access to share these district things. On that presentation, it has, we've got it blocked out because at the campus level, you would have fewer options here. You could share to your campus's quick views. You could share to your personal quick views. And then you can specify who you want to use the view, which is really a nice thing. So quick views are those things that show up in that drop down. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make this
Jenny, can I say just one quick thing here? I know you're in as an admin right now, and if you are a campus level person who has the principal role, you cannot share to the district level or make quick views for the district. So anybody who's a district, I'm sure you said that, but I just wanted to reiterate.
Okay. yeah, I did. So again, you won't have this option up here at the district level. So I'm just going to make this my quick view so I would be able to see it. But again, if I wanted other people to be able to use it, I could go here. Now, let me say this about quick views. Quick views can get a little out of hand. We'll go into trainings and districts and they'll do that. We'll drop down their quick views and there'll be quick views and then it'll say 2012 chemistry, unit 1, whatever. Assessment quick view. That's not really a quick view. That would have been a saved view or one they sent to somebody. So a quick view is something that's very generic that you can apply to any assessment. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a generic data view. It just needs to be something that applies. So the title should apply to anything. So like this, student scores basic analysis, I could apply that to any assessment because all I was looking at was, these few columns. But I could do an SE breakdown. I can do any of those things. Anything that you could apply to any test is something you're going to want to add to your quick views. Your saved views can be more specific and views you send. But your quick views, again, you don't want that list to be so overwhelming when people click on it that they don't ever use anything past the first 3 or 4 because they get so convoluted. But again, anything really specific shouldn't be a quick view. Okay, so my quick views, I'm going to submit. Okay, so then when I go here, I can go to any assessment now. And right here is that one I just created. Student scores basic analysis. I can apply that to any assessment in my system. If I had shared it, that's for my personal use, but if I had made it a campus quick view and I had enabled teachers to be able to see it, it would then be in the teachers' options for reports. So keep in mind, guys, your teachers with their rights do not have this edit button. So a way to save yourself time is to create that SE breakdown, so student expectation breakdown or learning standard breakdown report, and make it a quick view. And once you've made it a quick view and shared it with them, they can click on it and pull that report themselves. So it will kind of take some of that away off of you for building those reports. It's a way to work around them not having, you know, the edit button to build reports themselves. They can just select it from the drop down here. Do y'all have any questions about that?
There are no questions about that, about the quick view.
Okay.
Can you show them?
So again,
Sorry.
You won't get that share icon, the little hand, until you've saved it. Once it's a saved view, then the little icon pops up to make it a quick view. Okay, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask if you could show where the received view is, that little green icon. So when a teacher comes in, that's what it looks like.
Yes, right here. So Beth referred to this. When you send a view to a teacher, it sends them an email that they need to log in and look at their received views. And then they have this little icon here that says received views, and that's where they would go in and look at the views they received from you. And if you send, oh, here's another piece. Okay, so if you send a report, if you generate a data view that has the data for multiple classrooms in it, and you send it to a teacher, they are only going to see the data for their students. So it doesn't have to be filtered to that specific teacher before you send it. So it will only still allow them, Edgefor is only ever going to allow them to see the data for students that are rostered to them, unless you have that principal role. So someone who has the principal role can see the student data for all students on the campus. So that would be the exception there. So sometimes they give that role to teachers. You know, it's up to the district, but sometimes that happens because they help pull data reports or whatever. But other than that, they're only going to see the data for their students that are rostered to them. Okay, any questions?
We're good on questions.
Okay, so just a little recap. So again, we made the slide with that because at the campus level, if you're a district user, you can apply that to a district quick view, so everybody in the district would be able to use it. But if you're at the campus level, you're only going to see that at the campus level. So sending views was where you search for a specific user and you sent it, and it showed up under that little My Received Views tab for the teacher. And again, they'll only be able to view the data for students who are rostered to them. And last but not least, the edit button is your friend. You are not going to ruin anything. You're not going to get rid of the data's there. You're not going to get rid of it. Get in there and play around. It can be a bit frustrating when you first start. I'm not going to lie, because sometimes again you generate a report and it doesn't pull, but you just keep kind of fooling with it. You'll find that there are 5 or 6 that you just kind of then realize you can't live without, and you get really good at pulling them, and you may add them, you may make them a quick view, and you may not. It may be just something you want to use for your own use. But it's easy once you get started. You just have to get started. Just get in there and play. If you don't have this edit button and you're being asked to pull reports and you're having to put them all in Excel and create reports from there, ask somebody about this. The only stipulation or thing I'll say about that is that then you will have access to all students on the campus. So sometimes that's depending on how your district admin feels about it, that could be why you don't have it, or if it's just a limited number of people who have that. But you need the edit button to be able to build these reports in the system. All right, and I think Catherine has one more poll.
I thought I changed the slide. I updated the slide, but I probably only have it on my screen. I will take back over presentation mode to ask this question, and give me a second to do that. Someone also asked if they could please get the PowerPoint, and there is a PDF of the presentation that is attached to today's webinar. So if you want to go ahead and download that PDF of all the slides, that would be great. If not, check back on our website under announcements, past webinars, and I will attach the actual PowerPoint and I'll change everything so you can download and modify it if you like. So is everybody seeing my, Jenny, are you seeing raise your hand if you're ready to try editing a view on your site?
I am.
That was a quick change because the poll had expired. So let's go ahead and let me see hands raising. Hopefully those of you who are ready to try. Awesome. We see hands going up. Today's goal was to take the fear out of hitting that edit button. And thank you for raising your hands and participating in our modified poll. If you would like additional training for your district, as Jenny and I have done today, and with Beth's help, this can be done over the web. You can have help building views. We do recommend that you purchase a 1-hour web consulting with us. It's $150 per hour, and you get someone like Jenny one-on-one for you and to help you with your campus or district report building. If you're on a campus, check to see if your district has someone who can help you pull those reports. If you're not sure and you want some guidance, somebody like Beth. And we've answered all of the questions, I believe. I was trying to answer them as we went through, Jenny. I'm just double checking to see if there's anything else. Where's the PDF? The PDF is located under the handouts in the GoToWebinar control panel. So you should be able to download that. The PowerPoint I will attach under our announcements. So if you go to our online help, when you're logged into Eduphoria, this will show up. You can click on announcements and then go to our past webinars, which this one will be March 2017. And I will attach the PowerPoint and the PDF to this actual webinar posting. So that's where you can find it afterwards. I think there's one more slide. Please, please, please help us to gather information about the College Board AP curriculum framework so we can put it all in a nice package and give it to the College Board and get those AP curriculum frameworks into our database. We've been working on this for years, and we're hoping that getting information from our districts will help us to persuade the College Board to let us add these to our database. And if there's nothing else today, we really appreciate all of your participation and your wonderful, wonderful questions from today. And I'm trying to read, let's see. Oh, here's a good comment. And Jenny and I have this great sheet that I think Jenny's working on redoing, recipe cards for building views. Someone said that, have you considered having a place to share editing recipes? So this was a beautiful, beautiful timing. Thank you, Lori, for saying that.
Yes, we are. That is actually something we are currently working on. So that's good.
So if you have some recipes you would like to share, please let us know, and we can add those. Maybe we'll have a sharing recipe card swap or something, a webinar after testing is over and everybody's ready for something easy and fun, like building views. So thank you, Lori. Great suggestion. We hope everybody has a great spring break if yours is coming up soon, and good luck with state level testing. And thanks again for joining us. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Beth.
Thank you.